I got to feed my stream. I don't know if any of you guys have played with OBS before, or similar streaming. It's streaming software, open source for my Mac. Now the problem is it didn't let me change my It didn't let me change my. There we go. The title on this thing. Bum, bum. All right, I think we're going to be no, not for kids. No, don't restrict. Save. All right, so can somebody just confirm that you can see that streaming on YouTube?
What's the URL?
Well, golly, I would have to figure that out, wouldn't I? Hold on a second.
What did you put in the title? I should be able to just Google search it and find it.
No, I've got it. I got it.
Is it just the QR code in the stream?
Good.
No, that would
I
be
see
good
it.
though. But yeah, you should check that QR code. Hang on a second. Let me drop the vid right here. Yeah, there we go. All right, that should be the live video right now. Did somebody just beat me to it? Well, yeah, that one's kind of like more generic, and this is the actual link to the video that should be live streaming right now.
Yeah, it's live. It looks
Yeah.
good. It's not part of the Discord.
All right. And the other question is, has anybody checked to see, do we have your voice comments showing up on the audio stream to the YouTube channel? Should. It should.
It is.
Give me one
Okay.
second.
All right. So then I need to do the reminder to everybody that the way that I do this thing is I stream it live to YouTube, and it's public. And so if anybody has any like just privacy concerns, if you speak up, now if you're chatting on Discord, all of that is not visible to the YouTube channel. So any chats that happen in Discord is private, not publicly available to anybody outside the class. And if you would rather I not like call you by name in the event that you make a comment, good job, Bob. Do we have any Bobs? No, there's no Bobs anymore in your generation. That's an overstatement, I understand, but it's a relatively true generalization. Anyway, so if you have any concerns about the privacy thing, just make any comments via chat. Don't make them via voice, okay? If you say something on the channel, then you're giving your permission for that to be in the YouTube video that's going to be publicly available. Everybody good? Yeah, say yes if you're okay with that. Or chat. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, you just be aware of that. It's one of those kind of like, is it hypersensitive? Maybe some people are going to be sensitive, so want to be careful about that. Okay, so 305G, is everybody pumped? Besides me, thank you, Erica. Am I the only one who's excited here? Because I am. I have to tell you. I have a little bit. I recognize a lot of you, and that's kind of good news, bad news, frankly, for me. I'm kidding. It's actually all good.
Sure, bud.
No, anybody who wants to be here kind of knows what they're getting, And some of you will be like, well, he's going to be on a philosophical rant, but at least it'll be the topic, So, everyone's like, please, Dr. K, tell us about activation records. It's far more interesting than your dumb stories. So this class is all about Dr. K's dumb stories. So
It's one of King to catch me through that last class about the architecture.
yeah. Well,
that was rough until the end. It was rough.
that can be a little rough, to be sure. Okay, yeah, Mason's not excited. Thanks, Mason. Why don't you get out of my class, man? What do you want from me? Had enough of your act, man. Anyway. Oh, we answering a different question. Okay. Nice. That was about activation records. I thought it was in answer to the question, who's excited to be here? Mason's like, no.
Already getting personally attacked
Yeah,
right by me this time, Dr. K. Like,
I know, man. This is just rough. So, yeah. Oh, my gosh. No, I really wish, honestly, I really wish we were live just because I do know a lot of you and you know, I love you all. You know that. And you're like my cool friends. And you're the only friends I have pretty much in the world. So if it weren't for you, I don't know where I'd be. I actually do know where I'd be. Not here, that's
want
for
to enlighten us?
no. No, anyway. So, hey, how's one of my kind of just nagging questions is how's the whole quarantine summer? Are you guys just kind of dying, you know, hanging in there? I don't know. It's just, are you guys as pissy as I am, I guess is the real question.
This has been my lifestyle for a very long time.
Well, for some of you, yeah.
People in general.
For some of you, yeah, just keep it up. Keep up the good work. You know, don't change anything. Gamer boy, you're doing great. Just keep it going. And or gamer girl, whatever.
Well, whichever you identify as.
Whatever you are, man, it's all good. But no, the gamers are just like, what's going on? Don't worry about it. I'll bring you pizza. Okay, so hey, check it out. So we're 305G. Now I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do here. This is just so good. I love the chat comments. Okay. We're going to have a party. We are in fact going to have an absolute party. I promise. So yeah, I am sharing. Yeah, so everybody, let me see. Hang on. I'm just putting a chat over there because I think there are people who are not. Well, so like Tyson asked, you know, are you sharing your screen? Yeah, and I'm basically projecting my screen over to the voice channel. So Tyson, you just got to be in the voice channel. Yeah, found it. All right. So here's the deal. This class is, in my estimation, like the coolest thing ever. And so I want to just talk for a second about why I think this is the coolest thing ever. And it's a little bit complex, but I promise you that I will uncomplexify it for you. Okay. And so, number one, you know what's amazing about computer science software? You just think about any major, right? Any major at any university. I don't care if it's UVU or anywhere. Just think about a major that over the course of less than my lifetime, right? I'm thinking about, let's go back 50 years, goes back to 1970, and that's just before, you know, Microsoft and Apple are founded. Okay, so there was already kind of a, you know, mainframes already existed, but it wasn't until, you know, the PC thing starts to happen, and it's not even until the 2000s that you get, you know, these bad boys with everybody in the world has a camera and a GPS, right, and instant connectivity, and I can't think of a major that in 50 years has like absolutely, completely, radically transformed the entire world and everything about our culture and society globally. Anybody confirm or deny? Just think about it. And I'm not saying that they aren't also, you know, moving at a pretty high rate of speed. You know what I mean? Advances in science, advances in biology. I mean, advances in every field, you know, is still a very cool thing. Most of the really great stuff is sort of aided and abetted by computers also, turns out. But if you just talk about computing, just computing devices and software, right? I mean, anybody got anything that's even close? What are your thoughts on that? Talk to me. Can you guys hear? Are you talking and I can't hear you? Because that happens sometimes, which I hate it. Okay, but are you guys talking and I can't hear you? This always happens to my Discord. Dang it. Yeah, crap. Okay, the only way to fix this I have found is I'm going to just kill Discord and I'm going to throw it back up. Wait for me. I'll be right back. And for everybody
online.
Okay, yeah, I'm back.
Oh, dang it, it's too quick. He got back too quick. Never mind.
Too quick on the draw. What are you guys setting up?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, okay. It'll come back. It'll come back later. Okay. Now, but I don't have the screen share going. No, I got to do that real quick. Okay, hang on a second. Let me bring that back.
Should be connecting now.
While you're doing that, I'll go ahead and say what I was saying.
Yeah.
So the back when I got my first computer, I got an Intel i5 4790K. It was like top of the line, 4 cores, X amount of hertz, and now we got processors now that are running 16 cores, and not just that, is they're running virtual cores as well, called those threads, right? So it's doubling everything up. And that wasn't even really thought of being possible commercially back when I got that computer only 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and by the way, so Tyler mentioned, sorry, Wyatt, I got distracted, but no, this is right. This is, you look at the main, the most powerful computer in the world, whatever, in the 60s, and it's not as much horsepower as this. That's true. Most powerful supercomputer. So, okay, so let me just say this. Tyler, said YouTube's about 10, 15 seconds behind. Correct. That is why I try to stream simultaneously to YouTube for archival, so it just automatically just makes that file when we're done, and then it's just up there and you can go back and look at it. There's a few people that just can't be here right now, and you know what I mean, so you can kind of get back to it. And but with Discord, it's all simultaneous. So that's why we're doing that. When I first did this after spring break, we were trying to do it all through YouTube, and the latency was just too bad. You had to wait like 10 seconds, for somebody to respond or whatever. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So the amazing thing, I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, I just think about. So I'm like the last 3 weeks of the baby boom, like the tail end of 1959. I was born in the 50s. And I'm freaking old as dirt, man. And you just think about it, and you don't, you want to. I already look enough like an old man, but you run the risk of really, really sounding like one. You know what I mean? You want to be that guy. But really, you know what I mean? Back in the day when air conditioning was not standard equipment in automobiles, or in houses for that matter, when you grew up in Iowa and it was that hot, humid, you know what I mean? You're sweating in your bed at night with the windows open and a fan, and you feel for the cool side of the pillow, so you could flip it about every 20 minutes through the night. How did we survive? I don't know how we did it. But anyway, so, but I mean, even from, I was already a university professor before the smartphone showed up. It's just crazy. It's crazy. That's the bottom line, is it's absolutely crazy. So when you start to talk about that, what are the sociological implications, right? What's happened societally? It's insane. It's insane. Okay. And we'll talk about some of the stuff as we go, the history of computing, right? Do you know that when, then TikTok happened. Yeah. Thank goodness for that. Do you remember, I know you don't remember this, but when the Soviet Union fell, right, which was what, 89? When the Berlin Wall came down and the Soviet Union, collapsed, You know what the driving technology was that was used by Boris Yeltsin and those? Because if you're gonna try to create a revolution of some form, right, you have to have an ability to communicate. Because the reason you need a revolution is because there's sort of a, when you've got a dictatorial thing, one of the things you control is the flow of information, and you also control speech. You limit freedom of speech in order to embrace dictatorial control. It's one of the kind of prereqs. Okay. Maybe we can talk a little bit about Machiavelli somewhere along the line. But you have to have some ability to communicate, right? Right? During World War II, the Nazis controlled things like mimeograph machines. Remember what that? Yeah, I remember these, right? But they were mimeograph machines, printing presses. Any mechanism for mass communication was controlled and strictly locked down, because what you can't get is the 90% of the people being held down to all just look up and just go, hey, maybe we all think this sucks. You can't, if everyone says it at the same time, they're dead. You know what I mean? Oh, roll. Yeah, roll. I'm making a big note. I'm going to finish my story, and then I'm going to come back to taking roll. Point I'm getting at is there has to be a mechanism. During the Arab Spring, it was Facebook and Twitter, so that you could create a flash mob. 100,000 people suddenly show up, chant their protest, and then just disappear before the state police could show up to disperse the mob. That was critical to the Arab Spring. But in the late 80s, the technology was fax machines. Boris Yeltsin's followers and those folks, the technology of choice was the fax machine. That's how they organized themselves against the Soviet Union. Right? That's kind of weird and crazy, but that was the technology. That's what you could get your hands on and utilize. So what I'm trying to say is, you take away fax machines, right? The Nazis basically tried to take away all printing presses, printing devices, mimeograph machines, any of that kind of stuff. They had to control technology that was about information flow. And when the Arab Spring was happening, a lot of the Arab dictators would immediately try to shut down the internet, shut off Facebook, shut off Twitter, because you have to shut down communication. You have to shut down information flow. All I'm trying to say is the course of human history is just perpetually impacted dramatically by these technologies that allow us to communicate for better and for worse, right? TikTok, whatever, the fax machine. I don't know, Mason. Well, really complicated Morse code. That's, ish. And then, so let me see. Yeah, Delia, we should talk about whether let's talk about whether the internet is a basic right, right? That's an interesting question, right? Is it a human right, But all of the internet, all of data communications is really just complicated Morse code. Okay, so the reason that this is so cool, and I kind of said this over here, segue, one of my classic Dr. K smooth segues, right here, where I said it's kind of an ethics class, but it's also a history class, and it's also kind of a sociology class, and, and it's a writing class. Oh, yeah. And it's a business class, and it's an entrepreneurship class, and it's, So it's really all those things. But that's what's so remarkable about this computer thing we talk about, and software. And it's freakish what has happened to human history in the last 50 years because of, computers, starting with the microprocessor. So anyway, but that's why it's so cool, right? So among the topics, so you might notice that the full class schedule, you can't see the class schedule. I'm going to show you my view of it. You ready for this? You're going to really appreciate this. You guys tracking here? That's the current. Now, that's not the final.
Beautiful.
It's not the final schedule. It's Mike. Oh, but fall break, very important. Let's not
Very
screw that up.
important. You
Let's
can't
not.
forget that.
Yeah, and let's not screw up Thanksgiving break. Okay, what I'm trying to say, and we know we're talking about introduction, and we got to talk about the orders of ignorance because otherwise I'd have to, like, I'd cease to exist if I couldn't talk about the orders of ignorance in a class like this.
After like 15 minutes, we finally get to the core material.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, so that's kind of the, that's, I'm going to tell you what the topics are though, okay, where we're going to go, because there's so much stuff. So what I'm going to do real quick, just to give you a little enlightenment about topic, I've got a little spreadsheet, which I am going to just throw over on that screen. Once my oh so slow laptop. Oh, you know what's happening. Hang on a second. Maybe I should pause my my Google whateverness. Okay. Come on. All right. Now there is, hang on a second. I'm going to throw this over there for you. I just want you to get a feel for what's coming down the pipe. This is in no particular order, okay? And is that, how visible is that? Do I need to blow that up more? Or is that adequate to see?
It's semi-adequate.
Okay, that's
A bigger
not good
might
enough.
be nice.
Yeah. Okay, hang on a second. Where?
Looks like I just got hit in the eye and my eyes trying to like refocus. That's how it looks to us.
Nice. What I was trying to do, let me make this. There's a handful of notes over here that are less relevant, but I just want to get to my, where's the dumb? There we go. I'm going to make that guy, let's make it 300%. Okay, so that's probably a little easier to read. So here's some of the topics, okay? Everyone's good with that, right? You can read that better?
Looks good.
And by the way, those of you that had me last in the spring, I've got a big monitor over here that is the same thing basically that you see, you know, as, you know, this part right here. And so that's why I'm looking off to the left whenever I'm looking at what you're seeing. So yeah, introduction, orders of ignorance. We'll spend a couple days. There's some things I want to talk about the, you know, the orders of ignorance and a little bit of epistemological madness where we get to talk about, you know, kind of just, you know, how we know what we know and how we don't know what we don't know, and it's kind of a follow-on to the orders of ignorance. There's a strong writing component, but we're going to make you a better writer. And you need to be a better writer, and I'm going to give you some speeches about that. I want to talk about freedom of speech, which has become a really very interesting thing. And this is, I'm at very high risk to myself professionally, but I want to talk about cancel culture, which is a phenomenon that cannot exist without this, okay? Again, it is a technological, it's a social phenomenon with a technological fuel, okay? So there's a whole domain there, and there's a number of resources that I want to kind of draw from. Intellectual property, which is, you know, patents, copyright, trademark, all that stuff. A couple days on that. I want to talk about employment, like employment contracts, you know what I mean? Issues that affect, as you guys are thinking about going out into the world, and some of you are out in that world already working, you know, professionally, but, you know, I want to talk about that. Open source software is a phenomenon that is weird, but I want to talk about it, and it takes a little while to talk about it. Oh, and also, like over here on intellectual property, like fair use, there's some, you know, I want to talk about Aaron Schwartz, who's a very interesting, you know, individual. There's a story, tragic story with Aaron, but the whole notion of fair use and, you know, blocking, video blocking on YouTube and things like that. So open source software comes after intellectual property at some point. The whole history of computing, and this is like number of days I want to spend on it. The history of computing, there's a lot of things that I want to kind of get to, which we will. Hacking and security, we got to talk about Snowden, we got to talk about WikiLeaks, phishing attacks, Nigerian scams, email scams. And you understand that from an ethical perspective, right, that there's an ethical aspect that pervades all of this, right? I don't view this as a classic ethics course, you know what I mean? Because I just think this is more interesting than that. It's a little more applied in a sense. Hacking and security, yeah, okay. Personal and professional ethics, right? Becomes an issue. Women in computing, the blue, by the way, means guest speaker. I'm going to have a partial guest speaker. That's what the blue means there. I'll have a guest speaker for women in computing. That's one of those issues that, you know, ladies, are we underrepresented? By we, I mean you. I'm going to go with yes.
Yes.
I'm going to go with yes. And I think that's an interesting thing. I think it's a very relevant topic, right? And this, by the way, is not in order, okay? This is in right now, no particular order. That's what I've got to, the only reason it says blah, blah, blah is because I have to put this into that in a way that makes sense. Social media and the participatory web, that is MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, dating apps, but it's also just, you know, there's so much cool stuff here. We're going to talk about some work by Clay Shirky, where he talks about what he calls the producers formerly known as the audience, is what he likes to call it. Which is a phenomenon that you guys cannot fully appreciate because you just lived in it for the most part already. You know what I mean? Fish does not know that it's in water. Right? You can't perceive that there's something outside that water. You guys have a difficult time perceiving truly what that transition actually looked like and why newspapers are going away as well they should. Maybe. You know what I mean? Ink on dead trees carried by teenagers in burlap bags on bicycles to hurl them into the driveway in the rain. What is this, frickin' 1882? You know what I mean? It's barbaric. Entrepreneurship. I know of at least a few people that have founded billion-dollar companies. And I want to get at least one of them to come talk to you guys this semester. Because I mean, right? I
That'd
mean,
be cool.
I think the barrier to entry business-wise has really dropped over the years. You know, I mean, back in the day, and these are all little teasers, right? But back in the day when you got software by going to like a Fry's in the Bay Area, which was a brick and mortar store for software, which the concept alone just feels just staggering, right? I'm going to go to a store and then shop in the shelves like I'm at Walmart in order to find bits that are on plastic in cardboard boxes. That's how I'm going to get my bits on plastic in cardboard. It's absurd. Anyway, back when that was the day, what was the barrier to entry to software companies? Much like it was to go start a band. You know what I mean? There was no Justin Bieber being discovered on YouTube. For better or worse, you may be a believer, you may not be. I don't know. I'm just saying that there's so many phenomena that just vanish if you take away, you know, the structures we take for granted, like the web and like YouTube. Barrier to entry used to be very high. We're going to talk about that. This is a separate thing. The Technology and Society Reading Circles is just a day where we do some cool stuff. Some internet safety stuff, privacy stuff, and software failures, safety critical, mission critical, right? When you've got software in like the Therac 25, which we're going to talk about, you got the Therac 25 that kills like 7 people in Yakima, Washington. It's a radiation therapy machine, right? Spoiler alert. They were so confident in rolling the system over from purely hardware-based to software controlled that they took out the hardware fail-safe mechanisms, allowing the machine to shoot unspeakable amounts of radiation into patients, and killed like 7 people, if I'm remembering that correctly. Okay.
So they made a radiation gun, a giant.
They made a
radiation gun.
giant radiation gun, but which had to be. It took a certain amount of fluency and skill on the part of the controller to run the system fast enough to squeeze the controls through a race condition in the code. That if you could squeeze through the race condition, you would trigger this thing that should have had a failsafe in hardware. Didn't, zap. True story. True story.
Oh, I'd heard of that one actually.
It's a remarkable story. Tragic. There were literally like 7 people that died, and others that didn't die. But whatever.
Really disturbing.
Crazy, right? Yeah, super disturbing. So, anyway, there's so much about that, right? Or even, when you talk about mission critical, safety critical, there was a point where what they call fly-by-wire aircraft became a thing, where the you pull the stick, and there's, used to be that was mechanically connected to like, flaps and stuff. I don't even know. I'm not a pilot, right? But there were things that were mechanically connected to like flaps and other kinds of things. And all of a sudden you've got separate controllers with like Ethernet, running through Morse code, as Mason reminds us, basically, and no manual physical connection. Is that true, Mason? F-16 was no mechanical backup? First, I presume first fighter jet or first any jet? Was that the first fighter jet, Mason, or was that the first? Okay. Yeah. But there was that point where you're on a commercial aircraft, right? So, anyway, I remember sitting on an airplane once with a pilot. Happened to be next to me was a pilot who was just flying standby, right? Delta pilot. And I was doing a class like this at BYU at the time, and just asked him about that. And he was like, literally was like, I will not get on an Airbus, whatever the number was. He was like, literally was not willing to go in a fly-by-wire aircraft. Was not willing to just be a passenger in one. Like, okay, your right, your Ethernet driver is gonna need to be rebooted. I don't know, right? I don't know. I mean, the freaking entertainment center the entertainment system doesn't stay up for an entire cross-country flight. Better hope that the flaps are working. I'm exaggerating, of course, a little bit, but it's an issue. Okay. But do you kind of just get a feel for the flavor of the topics? It's crazy. It's remarkable. And it blows my brains. And a little bit of my history with this kind of material. When I was, some of you know I was on faculty at BYU for 14 and a half years, starting in 2000. And, retired at the end of 2014, then unretired to the happiest place on earth, Utah Valley University, and where I'm having an absolute blast. But for about 12 years at BYU, I taught a course, basically this course. It was CS 404, course not found, but the number happened before. The number was before HTTP, okay? That was the truth. And it was a course that was so legendary in the Valley that we actually named a room after it in the CS building at UVU. They named a room after my course. You'll find it on the 4th floor. It's CS 404.
I don't think the room's there.
Is anybody with me here? Is anybody tracking? Okay. So, so I did that for 11, 12 years. I also rolled in, and the course had kind of become a huge suck. In my humble opinion, it had become the suck. And it was one of those beautiful moments because nobody wanted to touch it. And this guy who was a former chair, very old, very retiring, and I asked him about, when I took it over, and I was like, what do you, any advice? And he was like, yeah, well, just don't get saddled with it. Don't let the albatross stay around your neck, Like that, I'm like, what are you, Like, I don't know. It's almost like there's this classic computer science PhD that wakes up one day and is shocked to discover that people actually use these things we make, and that it changes society. Crazy, right? So anyway, but that was his thing. And the beautiful thing is that when you have access to the thing that nobody wants to touch, you know how much freedom there is? It's huge, huge freedom. So I'm just like, I'm going to just reconstruct this thing from scratch, which I did. And when I showed up here, and some of the discussions with our illustrious chair, my friend Neil Harrison, and began to just talk a little bit about it. I was like, ooh, pick me, can I pick me? And because I just think it's just such, this is the stuff of which really life is made these days. And you think about it this way. I remember once sitting in on a stats class when I was on faculty, at the other end of the Parkway. But I was sitting in on a stats class. And I remember the stats professor, a friend of mine, who had said that the reason that you have a stats class is so that you can read the newspaper, right? The idea being that until you can understand basic statistics, you can't make sense of the thing. You know what I mean? Everything you read in the newspaper just becomes kind of like, okay, you start to sound like journalists. And you know what I mean? You just make kind of weird, indefensible things that the data just doesn't say, things like that. I kind of feel like this to me is almost like that, but it's almost like how to understand all of society in 2020. If you don't understand what is fueling it from a technological perspective, I think you're missing some of that understanding and grokking the dynamics of what's going on. Does that make sense? That's why I care about this material. And it is the human aspect writ large. It is the human aspect really blown up big, right? You talk about like human-computer interface, you know what I mean? And whatever, interface design, user experience, these sort of, we think of these as sort of like the human aspects. This to me is that idea only just on a massive global scale. And you have to view that. Okay, one last story, and then I'm going to get on to what the class is about. Again, those of you who have had me in certain classes know I'm not a slave to the schedule. I'm just want to make sure we're having fun and doing it.
It's literally the only thing that keeps me sane in these sort of classes. I'll be honest with you, Dr. K, because I've had some other lectures that are like this, like theory or whatever, where the professor talks like this, and I literally just want to hang myself.
Don't do that.
So this is a great change.
So, but anyway, no, I just want to make sure we're having a good time and that we're thinking, and hopefully hopefully I can introduce you to like a couple dozen books, just that one or two of those might do something to you, might change you, right?
Oh, I'm excited for it. I had no idea there was a course on this kind of stuff, but some of the topic keeps me up at night, so I had no idea there was a course.
That's cool. That's cool. Wait. But but really me too, historically, it was always a thing for me, So here's a true story, one last true story. All the rest will be false after that. No, there's one last story that happens to be a true story for once, and then I want to talk about a little more of the organization because we've got like a half hour or whatever. Again, it's been, summer went way too fast, so I'm in no mood to get overly, aggressive too fast. So I'm at this conference. We were doing research, again, at the other school, right, where I had a research lab. And we were doing research, really what I was doing was sociological research. I didn't even know it. But I was at a conference, kind of an invited conference of people that were doing research in open source software. But you have to understand, this was like 12 or 13 years ago. So this is like 07, 08. And I'm at this thing, we're talking about open source, and I was kind of really new to the field of researching open source. We wound up doing some really cool research in this domain of open source software. But at this conference, there was just a number of speakers, right? And you find when you go to conferences, most of the presentations are horrific, and then some of them are tolerable, and then there's a certain slice that really just, if you're me, this is my experience, right? I'm imposing my bias, and so, but I just noticed that whenever I was really leaning forward in my chair, I'd look at like, who is this guy, you know? And then I'd go look him up online, and it would be like, oh, dude's a sociologist. You know what I mean? Like, okay, who is this lady? What is, it's like, boom, my head's exploding. Who is this? Look her up. Okay, she's a sociologist. And like that whole day, there were like 4 talks that blew my head, like truly just hooked me deep. And they were all sociologists. And I was like, and it was weird because I think I was like chatting. I think in the middle of that thing, I was chatting with my wife, remote. This was in Irvine, was where we were, Irvine, California. And I'm just chatting, and I'm just like, guess what I just learned today? And it's like, I just learned that I'm an ethnographer, which I didn't know what that was prior to the day. But I then knew that there was a thing called sociology, and that within sociology, there's a thing called ethnography. And ethnography, had to do with just sort of like the study of culture and people. And I realized that I was a software ethnographer. Even as a computer science researcher, I was a software ethnographer. So that was like a weird life-changing day for me, where I just kind of walked away and was just like, I'm a frickin' sociologist with a doctorate in computer science, which is odd, but I'm odd, so it all worked. The equation balanced, you know what I mean? Just multiply by odd on both sides of the equation, and the equation balances. But so for me, and then we proceeded to just do sociological research. Software engineering, sociological perspective. Isn't that crazy? And then we'd get into this like, well, is that computer science? My first answer to that question was, I don't know. And then my ultimate answer to that was, I don't care. That as long as I have a doctorate in computer science and I'm a professor in a computer science department and I'm doing research, let's just call it computer science. And then if anybody has a problem with that, then they're the one with the problem. That's kind of my approach. So, okay. That's just a little bit of like why you should care. You know what I mean? That's just a little happy dance of everything that floats in my head. I have hundreds of books on these subjects, many of which I was acquiring before I was ever teaching this stuff. So I'm odd. I get that. And I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? I'm quite at peace. So let me bump back over to the class stuff. Okay, I'm going to scrolly a little bit. Okay, first of all, this is where class is. It's here on Discord. I hope that's cool with everybody. I think it beats the ever-loving crap out of every other possible solution I can conceptualize.
I'd much rather take this than have to download another absolute crap program on my computer that you just found somewhere on the internet.
Yeah, well, I try not to do that, I Google for absolute crap programs that I can download, and I'm like, yeah, Wyatt, you have to. Yeah, so there's some others, right? I mean, the big ones that I've seen people doing are Teams and Zoom, and I think they work just fine. But I'll tell you the one thing I really like about doing class on Discord. In my mind, Teams and I think they're fine products. I'm not dissing the products, but I do think that they emulate an online conference room, right? Which is fine. But this is more like a conference room in the middle of a massive bunch of cubes in an open space that we all share, with a bunch of whiteboards that everybody can jump on. That to me is what Discord is, So it's a community. So you can find me here. You're not going to find me on Zoom. You're not going to find me on Teams. You can find me here anytime, day or night, that I just happen to be on my laptop, which is most of the time. And if you catch me at whenever, I don't care if I'm available, ping me. If I can take the ping, I take it. If I can't, I'm not offended by it. You know what I mean? I mean, one of my actual joys from the spring was 2810 having somebody hit me up about, I don't think it was probably Wyatt. No, it might not have been. But there was somebody, I'm just picking on you, man. But it was like 1 or 2 in the morning because it was quarantine, man. We're all just like, whatever, life has shifted as we know it. It's like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then somebody like just hits me up with a DM on Discord, and they're like, Dr. K, are you up? You know, I'm like, yeah, what's happening? I'm totally stuck on homework, whatever, you know, in 2810. I'm just like, well, talk to me. And we just jumped on a video chat, you know what I mean? And did some screen share, and I just, you know, I don't know how long I spent. It didn't matter. It was fun. It was cool, and it was helpful. And so if you can catch me, it's all good. And we can try to make some office hours, but the reality is, you know, hit me whenever you want. I'm going to be a lot more available than if I'm parked. You know, I got to sit here. Sorry, that's my attitude about office hours. Here I am, ready for people to come. But mostly catch me on Discord and hit me up anytime, okay? What else? We're always streaming the video to YouTube. And so if you got conflicts, right? I mean, I want you to, oh, and by the way, can everybody, so we did kind of a roll, but can anybody who didn't, signing the roll is going to just be dropping your name into the chat on Discord. Okay? So, and you know, Bob was here. Thank you, folks. And then what we'll do is we just kind of, I'll try in the future to do it like in the first 15 minutes when we got a rhythm. So it's easier to like, okay, it's roll time. Here we go. So, all right. And if you already did it before, you're good. You don't have to do it again. But this is also a really participatory class. It's not a skills class like learn the equations, you know what I mean? Memorize the formulas, learn the, you know, do the equations, get out. This is much more experiential, and the fact that you're here is actually like a big chunk of the grade. Just be here, show up, or get an Autobot to log you in. And to say your name at the right time. I can't tell the difference.
Careful, there's a lot of computer engineers in here and computer scientists that just might do that.
That's true. So I'm going to start in. On this because I know it looks a little crazy, because this is like the opposite of 2810, right? 2810 is like modules done, you know, kind of thing. I don't know what that accent was just there. Long Island fisherman. I'm not sure what that accent was, but anyway, I'm going to kind of highlight it. You read this, okay? Read this on Canvas, please. I beg you. And then when I do the schedule, here's the cool thing. When the schedule is cooked, it's going to have every single day, like here's the topic. If there's a guest speaker, these are the readings, you know, for the day. You got to read the stuff before we come because we're going to be talking about it that day. You know what I mean? It's not like come to a class where you don't know anything and, you know, you come to learn and then you know better and then you go hit the book. You know, that can work. Here, you've got to come ready to talk about what we're talking about. And then it'll be also like, there's the readings, then here's the stuff you have to do this week, okay? So it'll be really laid out week by week. It won't be, you're not going to have to make your own elaborate woven calendar. I'm going to have a calendar that's going to basically guide you to all the stuff you have to, you know, turn in. And there'll be stuff on Canvas so you can do the little assignments. I'm just behind the curve because summer frickin' just vanished on me so fast. You know what I mean? It was June.
Seriously.
Right? I'm not just me, right, Erica? I mean, I was like June or something, and I was like freaking August. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing to me? What are you doing?
I feel that so much.
Oh, and hey, for those of you that were with me last spring, remember the famous accident in January? Remember when I got
Yes.
rear-ended? Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. Check out my scar.
Ooh.
That was June. End of June. That was July for me. Recover from that bad.
Man.
Yeah, they fix your spine by going in through the front. Cause gross.
Science.
Cause science.
I'm glad you got it fixed, though.
I know. Yeah, I can feel my hands again. I can
Good.
play guitar again. Still a little numb. But happy. That's just sharing. For those of you who are like, shut up, I don't want to see your scars. I got it here. Let me show you.
Oh,
No,
that's
I've
what
got.
that neck brace was about. Yeah.
What's that one?
That was what the neck brace was about.
That was what the neck brace was about.
Okay,
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
on Facebook. I was like,
I did a Facebook Live with the neck brace, and that was post surgery. Yeah. Anyway, we're about out of time. I want to just hit the highlights here, then read it, and then I can try to. I promise. I'll have the schedule fully cooked tomorrow, and then we'll talk about the orders of ignorance because we need to. We have to. But here's what's going to happen real quick. So attendance, and as you go to each one of these, they're all linked to like another page that'll tell you about that thing. Okay. So you can basically just go to the syllabus, go to this part here and click on any of those. They're also just in the pages if you want to just go look directly. Okay. But basically, we're going to do readings. I'll just find, there's no book. I sent out the email, right? No book. And the reason is, here's the book. Where's the book? I really noodled very, very hard. This was the textbook. I just felt like, man, there are so many contemporary resources that are like 2 weeks old, a month old, you know what I mean? That are just right on the cusp of everything going down right now, you know, in the sort of computers and society space, you know. Yeah, if you, yeah, Mason, if you already read the fish story, it's not going to hurt you to read it again. But you be the judge on the fish story, okay? Because some of you already know what the fish story is all about. Anyway, so what I want to do is attendance is mandatory, and I'll break this down a little bit more, but read it. Okay, you got to read it. The spec, this is the spec. Nobody can plead ignorance after the fact here. If I got it wrong, let me know and I'll tweak it. But to the extent that I've done it correctly, and onus is on you. What I have is everybody has to create a blog. And I went through this process because I was like, back in the day, in my previous incarnation, you know, I'm trying to teach writing, and then like everyone like turn in your piece of paper. And then I read it would just sucked. So then I kept upping the ante to try to make it a little more real. And finally, it was, you know, make a blog that's public to the world. If you have a reason why you feel uncomfortable doing that, you just let me know, right? Those of you that have had me already understand I'm not the hardest guy in the world to get along with. If you're really, even if you're just like, I'm just not comfortable, fine, make it a password thing, or you know what I mean? Do something that we can still get you the experience, right? I have had like military intelligence one time, like, you know, this guy's like, I literally can't have a footprint, you know, online. I'm like, really? Yeah, I really can't. You have to kill me? Yeah. So, you know, we can just, but sometimes you just, you know what I mean? Whatever the reason, right? You just, whatever. You got some psychotic ex, you know, or that you'd really rather not have track you down, or I'm just making crap up. But I'm just saying, whatever your reasons are your reasons. And if they're important enough for you to ask me, then it's important enough for me to work with you on it, you know? Again, I'm crazy. I'm crazy this way. So hard to get along with. But the idea is that we're going to do these smallish posts. And the smallish post is like one paragraph, one thought. It's just a one thought paragraph that stands alone as a thing, but it's got to be posted, okay? Okay, so thanks, Delia, for the starting a blog. It just has to be publicly accessible. These days, that's Medium and still WordPress. WordPress had a lot of staying power over the last decade or so, but Medium has become kind of the new thing. I think I view WordPress as being a little more throwaway and Medium a little more professional-ish. I don't mean throwaway in a pejorative sense. I just mean, I don't know, we'll talk about it. But anyway, sometimes the posts are on current event topics, sometimes they're on, it's all in there. And then we're going to read a couple books, okay? We're going to read this book. This is my original copy of The Cuckoo's Egg, which is a remarkably great read. Okay?
Stream busted.
What's
For
that?
Discord. The stream busted for Discord.
Duh,
It's just me.
Is it just anybody else got a busted stream?
Video feed is down.
Duh.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Okay, hang on a second. Let me try that one more time. We're actually almost out of, so you don't have any video. You know what I might do?
So
Wait,
you're
hang
telling
on.
me I actually have to read for this class.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. You do have to read. Okay, let me go back. Yeah, hang on a second. I can flip this back into stasis here very quickly.
YouTube is still up though, so you can always rewatch if you want to show anything.
What's
Yeah,
that?
That's true. The
Yeah.
YouTube is still up, is what he's saying.
Yeah. Is that back to happy?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yes. And anyway, so there's a bunch of readings, but we're going to read this book. And it's really, there's a number of reasons why, which I'm going to talk about, not the least of which is that Cliff Stahl, who went through this thing, signed my book. That's why I'm the coolest guy on the freaking planet. But humble brag, yeah. So Cliff and I used to hang out, have coffee together. No, that's my, what is that? My intellectual humble brag impersonation. I don't know what that is. But no, I think it's really a remarkable book. It's a very easy read, cheapo. You know what I mean? Get it for $2 used on Amazon. You know what I mean? But so there's, and then you're going to pick a book. This part right here, you're going to pick a book yourself. And I have an older list that's just out of date of potential candidate books you can choose from. But really, there's a lot of options. Okay. I'm going to make everybody get a LinkedIn profile, and I'm going to actually grade you on dolling it up. Dress that
Touched
thing
by
up.
Years. We're talking like 5 years.
Dress it up, because your future employer is going to want to take a look. Yeah, audiobook's fine. Audiobook's fine, Franklin. I've begun to experiment with audiobooks. There's going to be a video, position video that you have to produce a video that's like a 1-minute video, which is your position statement at the end of the semester. Start whenever you want. The literary extravaganza, you're going to really, really love. I make you write poetry and stuff. Please don't hate me.
You're killing me, man.
Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. You guys are going to love that, okay? Or you can do it. The truth is you can do whatever you want for that. But the default is poetry. But I've had some really amazingly, I usually jokingly say that you can do an interpretive dance. And then one semester in 12 at BYU, there was a student who was who was like a double major in dance and computer science, who did an interpretive dance in class. Remarkable. It was amazing. And so, you know, I had somebody else that was like involved with the what do they call those people? The comedy sports. It was like one of the comedy sports people that brought a group from comedy sports to do an improv on this sort of computers and society. I've had some remarkable things. And then just horrific limericks. What is wrong with your kind? These CS types. What is wrong? They cannot write a limerick. Read what
The language of computers.
There's something about rhyme and meter. You know, like da 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 da. Keep it clean, please. It's a limerick. Anyway, it's just an opportunity. So that's kind of what it is. So it looks like a lot and it looks really complex, but at the end of the day, it's going to be on this day. Here's the readings, you know, and here's what you need to produce on that day, and here's what you need to do by kind of like the end of that week. You know what I mean? And it's just going to lay out, and it really isn't as complex as it looks at first blush. All right.
It's a book club.
Is it a book club? Yeah, yeah,
That's
kind of.
the vibe I'm picking up.
Kind of. And I just want to remind, and I want to just, we're out of time. I want to just remind everybody we're going to stream it to YouTube. So just any comments, I'm trying to, you know, make sure that anything I say, you know, that I'm willing to like stand behind in court. You know what I mean? I want to just make sure everybody understands. 6:45. Yes, we do. We have 12 more minutes. Thank you. What? Jacob, thank you, man. I was looking at my clock going 6:30, 6:30. It's Freudian. I'm tired. It's late. Okay. So, yes. What else? Thank you. Man, I don't know what my problem was. I lost my mind for a second. But dive into these, then I can refine it next time, okay? A little bit. What else to say? Da 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 da. Any questions so far about all of that?
Okay.
Any
so the book
and all of the above.
the book of choice, does it have to follow a specific like topic? Does it have to follow sociology, ethics, or
Computers-
can it be literally anything?
Well, it's not literally anything because the topic of the course, it has to resonate with the topic of the course.
Okay, gotcha. So
Yeah.
books like Fahrenheit 451, for example, might be able to cut it.
Might be able to cut it. Yeah. Well, shoot, man.
That one
1984.
might be stretching it a little bit.
Man, I don't think so. I saw videos of robotic dogs.
Not just that, but that idea of getting rid of history. like,
Getting rid of history,
kinda
right?
seeing now.
No, I've been rereading 1984, for example, which I first read in 1984. That's how cool I am. I read 1984 in 1984. It just seemed like right. I mean, it just seemed like, shoot, this seems like the time for me to read that. And by the way, anyway, we'll get into it, but I think 1984 maybe counts almost just about. And by the way, 1984 is an equal opportunity political condemner. Can I just say that? I think 1984 condemns all across the political spectrum. It's not just an indictment of one administration. I'm just going to say that. I see behavior all across the spectrum. But so that's one that's, you know what I mean? I just think that in past generations, I don't think I would have said that. But I think we're into, a crazy zone now. Yeah, Wyatt, touch a book, man.
Hey, man.
Anyway, but the key is you have to read the book during this semester. It can't be just like, I read this a year ago, I'll count that one. You know?
We have to finish the book.
Yes? Hamilton the
Just read the
wait.
chapter, man.
Hamilton the musical? What are you doing? I mean, it has to be computers and society. I have a biography of Alexander Hamilton on my to-read shelf. No, anyway, but it can be, I mean, like, here's some examples. Here's a book that I just read by John Ronson called So You've Been Publicly Shamed. This is very, very relevant. I have this book by Clay Shirky called Here Comes Everybody.
Sounds like cancel culture, man.
You were going to talk about it, right? We're going to talk about cancel culture. Shirky is amazing. We've got this one, Engines of the Mind, which is a book about the origins of the computing idea and field and history. It's a great book. This one by Stephen Levy, I just had my stack here, called Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution. This is not like, security hackers. This is about inventors who were hacking things in the sense of figuring out how stuff worked. Goes back to the formation of Apple and Microsoft, and fantastic read. This one by Bob Cringely, Accidental Empires, which bears the subtitle, if you can read it, How the Boys of Silicon Valley Make Their Millions, Battle Foreign Competition, and Still Can't Get a Date. This was Cringely. This is a crazy readable book about really the dawn of the PC industry, the PC revolution. And it is mostly a story about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And this was the premise for the PBS series called Triumph of the Nerds, which Cringely did, which we're going to watch chunks of. So great. These are just the ones that happen to be just sitting like right here, but there are many, many more all over the place on every topic, right? On the sociology aspects. Let me see. Got this one, an audiobook, Invisible Women, Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. Okay, I have to have that. I saw this
the author was in a podcast and she was talking about like how vehicles are designed and how like
Oh,
they're
interesting.
designed for male bodies and like there's all kinds of different ways that
Yeah.
the world has been designed with the
Oh, yeah.
designers in mind.
Well, not only that, I mean, this is again spoiler, but when we get into sort of, the section I'm calling Women in Computing, one of my professors at Oregon State, Margaret Burnett, launched a project that she called the Gender HCI Project. But it was really about the fact that the computing industry, for the most part, was constructed by overweight white guys with suspenders and beards. For the most part, I'm generalizing. It's not absolute. There are exceptions, but I'm just saying. And there's a lot of sort of like guy nerd humor. Am I correct? There's a lot of like weird guy nerd humor embedded in the field of computer science, and it's off-putting for a large cross section of people. So it's like, well, if your nerd force is not strong, you may not be with one of us. You can't be one of us. I think that's really, really dumb. You know what I mean? And let's just exclude people based upon some sort of nerd metric. But does that make sense? Anyone kind of confirm or deny? Am I just making crap up?
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
But I think that
My coworkers find my humor off-putting.
right, which is right. But I'm just saying this idea of exposing data bias in a world designed for men, I think it's really aligned with that same idea, right? My problem is, anyway, I've got my own problems, like the fact that coach airline seats are not made for guys that are 6'2", pushing 250. I don't know what those seats were made for, but they weren't made for me.
I'm
But
with you, man.
Anyway, with bad joints, I'm a mess. But anyway, I'm just saying. But this is great stuff. Great stuff. There was another one back when outsourcing was a big risk. There was a book I have that's called "My Job Went to India and All I Got Was This Book." It's really which is a great title. Apart from everything else, there's classic books on security, right? With some of the great security writers. You've got books. I read a biography of Edward Snowden not long ago. There are biographies and stories out there about WikiLeaks, about Julian Assange. I mean, again, there's this whole open source stuff, you know what I mean? Books and things that relate to open source software. Literally just any topic we're hitting. Remember, blah, 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 that whole list of blah, blah, blah. Anything we're going to hit in there is kind of fair game as a topic. And so what you can do is if you're really grooving on the gender issues, you're really grooving on the security stuff, or you're really interested in the historical aspects, or you really dig, right? Whatever it is, that second book is your opportunity to just kind of, align with the stuff that gets you going, so you can read the book you always wanted to read. And then when we do later on, I mentioned there was that the book reading circles, whatever. It's kind of book club. We're all going to pile into, I'm going to make voice channels for the different reading groups and bunch you based upon the relatedness of the books you read. And you're basically going to go like 5 people into one of the voice channels here on the Discord server. Nice. Thank you, Leo DiCaprio times whatever. Anyway, yeah. So does that make sense? You can do whatever. Hey, it's okay. Well, yeah. Mason you've been. We'll have to establish any rules. If anybody's like offended by that kind of language, then I myself will withhold on a couple memes I plan to share later in the semester. So you know what I mean. But we want to be respectful of everybody. Let's see. The only other thing really that I just want to say, I think we live in funky and dicey. Potty mouth is sometimes very therapeutic, I have to say, but we live in some really funky, dicey times. I think that tensions are high. Am I overstating?
You're
In
understating.
regard to COVID,
With regards to everything, it seems. I think it started.
Anything that has an opinion
Everything-
is
everything's-
very high strung.
Everything is like, it feels like everything's a powder keg. That's right. It's a lot of eggshells. It just feels to me
more
like
so recently.
last year. But I think COVID like put everybody on edge, and then everything just kind of exploded. It's politics, it's a lot of things, right? I just want to say that one of the things that I want to make sure that we establish sort of some rules of engagement, about the class, because I want to be able to have kind of open conversation where there's a freedom to share and to explore, right? But you're not in a situation where you're in this fear that if I misspeak, that suddenly I'm suddenly unhirable. So if there's, you know what I'm trying to say? We've reached that point. It's related a little bit to cancel culture, but I just want to make sure that in the class that we've got, number one, that everybody is kind of individually and personally committed to really just be as respectful as you can be toward everybody else in the class, to differences. Sorry. Oh, Erica, you won the class today. Erica won the class with that one.
Oh, isn't that great? Oh.
I'm just thinking of all those urinal cakes all melting at the same time, creating that full scented candle effect, right?
It's like there's a Balrog coming out of the fire.
There is a Balrog rising.
The scent develops you can't escape.
Oh my gosh, Erica. Yes. Yes. So anyway, okay, I'm just going to do one more and it'll be probably the right way. If 2020 were a pinata, this one is in honor of Mason, who broke the, who broke us down as far as language was concerned.
That was great.
So what I want to try to do, okay, is I want to avoid this, but I want to make sure that we've got enough mutual respect, you know what I mean? And if there are issues, I want to make sure if there's anything you're really sensitive about, man, come talk to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Come talk to me if there's anything that's making you uncomfortable or anything. And again, those that have had me can attest to the fact that I'm going to be, respectful, and I just wanted to make sure it's an environment that is just healthy, but healthy also means exchanging ideas, and it also means exchanging ideas you may not agree with, but it's part of that exploration and trying to understand what that space kind of looks like. And that's my sort of ethic for the class. But number one, we understand, that everybody is that we're in this thing together. We're going to try to have a shared experience, and mutual respect becomes critical to that. And I know enough about you guys generally as a group to know that that's kind of the pervasive vibe I've always gotten from students at UVU in the CS department. And I think we can go there. We can have some fun, cool stuff to talk about. Anyway. So, yeah. But just recognizing that there's a feeling I think that we all have that's like a little bit, can we actually talk about certain things? It's okay to be a little bit cautious, but I want to make sure that we're driven by mutual respect, that there are in fact differences of opinion, and this is my radical. I'm going to end you with my radical statement of the day. I'm going to end you with my radical statement of the day, which is there are in fact different perspectives on things, and that's okay. It really is, because otherwise, how do we converge? You know what I mean? How do we converge to understanding? If I can't start by saying I'm at A and you're at B, and I can go, well, tell me more about B. You know what I mean? If it's just like B or death, there was no dialogue. And I want to make sure that as we explore the space that we're sharing and that there's dialogue, I think we can do it. I think it's going to be a kick in the pantaloons. That's how I do it. That's how we rock and roll. So that's all I got, man. That's what I got for today. A little bit of an intro to everything. Get to know everybody. Have some fun.
If you need me to, Dr. K, I could get a sound effect of books closing to end the
and chair shuffling and books closing. Yeah. That might be good, actually, Wyatt, if you could do that.
Hold on, give me a second. I got to hold up real quick for anyone who wants to sit around for that.
Yeah, but anyway, that's kind of it. We are, in fact, overtime now, right? Yeah. Anyway, I think we're going to have a good time. The topics are so meaningful. So That's all I got. I'm gonna kill the YouTube feed right now.
Thanks, Dr. K.
What's that?
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.